The Blackwood Estate. A knife blade embedding itself into antique wood. A confession written in shaking hands. The realization that the man you called brother had been living two lives, and your family had been financing his lies for a decade. 13 hours earlier, Elena gripped the leather steering wheel of her silver SUV, watching the Victorian facade of the Blackwood Estate emerge through the rain-streaked windshield. The wipers thumped rhythmically. Thump, thump, thump. A gloomy gray sky hung low, pressing down on the dark wood siding of the house like a hand holding down a coffin lid. Mark stood on the porch, his body angled toward the heavy oak front door. He checked his watch, a gold Rolex. With a sharp, impatient flick of his wrist, the gold reflected the dim porch light. He didn't look at the driveway. Elena stepped out of the car, her heels clicking sharply on the gravel. Each step echoed across the wet stones. She locked the car with a chirp of the remote. The orange lights flashed once, twice, then died. Reaching the porch, she felt Mark's presence before she saw the tension in his shoulders. He blocked the doorway to the basement hallway, his body a human wall. When he turned to face her, he forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His fingers tapped nervously against the doorframe. Tap, tap, tap. A rhythm without purpose, without end. Elena. His voice came fast, clipped. You're late. The basement is a mess. Don't head down there yet. Elena narrowed her eyes. She noticed the smudge of fresh mud on Mark's designer loafers, the kind of mud that only came from the garden paths behind the estate, from the unused corners where nobody went. She pushed past him, her elbow clipping his arm slightly. Since when do you care about a little mess, Mark? The basement stairs groaned beneath her weight. Elena descended slowly, holding a copper flashlight. The beam cut through the dust-filled air, illuminating old furniture covered in white sheets. Furniture from dead relatives, forgotten treasures. The house's ghosts, all tucked away in the dark. She reached the wine cellar area. The flashlight beam hit the floor, and there, one plank of dark oak was slightly raised, catching the light and casting a long shadow. Just a small imperfection. The kind of thing you'd notice only if you were looking for something to be wrong. Elena kneeled, her denim jeans tightening. She wedged the tips of her fingers into the gap between the boards. She pulled. The wood groaned, resisting, and then, suddenly, gave way. The floorboard lifted with a sharp crack, revealing a hollow space beneath. Dirt, cobwebs, and something else. The flashlight beam revealed a small, black steel sentry safe tucked into the earth. On top of it lay a single, crumpled receipt from a jewelry store in Paris. Elena picked it up. Her thumb brushed the date. June 12, 2014. The amount printed below made her breath catch. $4,500. Cartier Paris. Mark was supposed to be at a business retreat in Chicago that week. She had the emails saved in her phone to prove it. Her hand started to shake. The receipt trembled in her fingers like a small animal caught in a net. Mark's shadow loomed over Elena as he appeared at the top of the basement stairs. He didn't say a word. He launched himself down the stairs, his feet slamming into the wood with violent purpose. Down, down, down. Each step a thunderclap. Elena scrambled back, the receipt clutched in her fist. Mark lunged, his hands snapping toward her wrists like a predator striking. He caught her left arm, twisting it hard. Elena's shoulders slammed into a stone pillar. Pain radiated through her joint, sharp and white-hot. "Give it to me, Elena. It's none of your business." His voice was a snarl. She had never heard her brother's voice sound like that before. Not human, not reasonable. Something else entirely. Elena drove her knee into Mark's stomach. He wheezed, his grip loosening. She shoved him backward. Mark stumbled, his heel catching on the loose floorboard she had just opened. His arms windmilled, searching for balance, finding none. Mark fell, his hand reaching out to steady himself. He hit the keypad of the safe as he went down. The safe emitted a sharp, electronic beep, followed by a green light that spilled across the darkness like poisoned water. The safe door swung open an inch. Elena froze. What she saw wasn't money. It was a thick, blue manila folder with a name written across it in elegant script. Sophia. Who is Sophia, Mark? The question came out as a whisper, cold and deadly. Elena dived for the safe. Her hand swept the blue folder into her chest. She rolled away as Mark tried to grab her ankle, his fingers brushing the fabric of her jeans but finding nothing to hold. Elena stood and backed away, keeping the copper flashlight trained on Mark's face. He was sitting on the floor now, gasping for air, his face slack with panic. In the harsh circle of light, his features looked skeletal, haunted. Don't open it. Elena, I'm warning you. This will kill Mom. Elena ripped the seal of the folder. 3 photographs slid out onto the dusty floor. The first showed Mark holding a toddler with golden curls in a park. The toddler was wearing a shirt that said, "Daddy's girl." The child was smiling. Mark was smiling. They looked happy in a way that made Elena's stomach turn to ice. She flipped the second photo. A woman, Sophia, laughing as she blew out candles on a birthday cake. Mark's arm was draped over her shoulder. The background showed a modern apartment. Everything about the image screamed intimacy, belonging, a life that existed entirely separate from the one they all knew. Elena pulled out a bank statement. Her thumb traced the numbers. Monthly transfers of $5,000 for the last 10 years. Column after column of numbers adding up to something impossible. Over $500,000. The total was written in red at the bottom. $617,000. None. 10 years, Mark? Her voice was venomous. You've been stealing from the estate for 10 years? Her knuckles turned white as she gripped the bank statement. The paper crumpled in her fist. Elena burst through the swinging kitchen doors into the dining room. Her hair was disheveled, and she was clutching the blue folder. The family, Mother, Aunt June, and Uncle Silas, looked up from their plates. Silver forks paused mid-bite. Conversations died mid-sentence. Mark emerged from the hallway behind her, lunging for the folder. He caught the edge of her sweater. They both crashed into a mahogany sideboard. A crystal vase wobbled, hung in the balance for one impossible moment, and then fell. It shattered on the floor in 1,000 pieces. Flowers scattered across the rug, water soaked into the Persian wool. Mother screamed. Elena shoved Mark off her. She used the heavy folder like a weapon, swinging it into his face. The corner of the folder clipped his cheek, leaving a red welt that bloomed like a flower opening in fast forward. Mother stood at the head of the table, her hands clutching the white lace tablecloth. Her face was pale as a ghost. A string of pearls around her neck reflected the chandelier, small bright points in the gathering darkness. What is the meaning of this? Mark? Elena? Elena slammed the folder onto the center of the table, right next to the roasted turkey. The photograph spilled out onto the gravy boat. The image of the golden-haired child stared up at them all. Meet your granddaughter, Mom. The one Mark has been hiding for a decade. Aunt June picked up a photo with her manicured hand. Her glasses slid down her nose. She stared at the image of the girl. Her mouth hung open in a silent, "Ooh." She has your eyes, Mark. Aunt June's whisper was terrified. Exactly like when you were 4. Claire appeared in the doorway. She was wearing a silk evening gown, holding a bottle of champagne. The bottle slipped from her hand. It hit the transition strip of the floor and shattered, sending champagne spilling across the marble and glass shards skittering in all directions. Elena turned to Claire. She held up the bank statements. Her hand was steady now. The anger had become something colder, harder, more useful. A tool. He didn't lose that money in the 2018 crash, Claire. He gave it to them. Mark dropped to his knees on the carpet, surrounded by the spilled champagne and broken glass. He reached for Claire's hand. She flinched away, her gown catching on a sharp shard. The silk tore with a sound like a scream. "Claire, honey, let me explain. She was alone. I couldn't leave her." Elena pulled the final piece from the folder. A marriage certificate from a different state, dated 3 years before Mark and Claire's wedding. The seal was official. The signatures were genuine. Mark was a bigamist. He had been married to Sophia when he married Claire. He had lied at the altar. He's not just a cheat. He's a criminal. You were never his legal wife, Claire. Mark lunged across the dining table, knocking over the turkey platter. His tie dipped into the gravy, trailing brown streaks across his white shirt. He scrambled toward Elena, his face twisted in rage. Elena turned and sprinted toward the great hall. Her feet skidded on the polished marble. She clutched the folder to her chest like a shield. The paintings on the walls blurred as she ran past them. Behind her, Mark was inches away. She could hear his breathing. She could hear the pound of his feet matching her own. Mark tackled Elena from behind. They slammed into a heavy suit of armor near the staircase. The armor collapsed with a deafening metallic clang. A steel gauntlet hit the floor. Sparks shot from the impact point. They crashed together, Elena and Mark, struggling on the marble floor among the twisted metal. Mark pinioned her arms. He was much stronger. He began to pry the folder from her hands. Elena's teeth snapped open. She bit his forearm hard, tasting skin and salt. Mark screamed and released her. Elena kicked him in the chest, sending him reeling back into the stairs. She grabbed the folder and ran up the steps 3 at a time. Mark was down, but reaching for a heavy brass lamp cord on the wall. Elena slammed the heavy oak library door and slid the iron bolt home. She leaned against the wood, her chest heaving. The room was dark, lit only by the fireplace embers. Orange glow cast everything in shadow. A match flared in the corner. Uncle Silas was sitting in a leather wingback chair, lighting a cigar. The light illuminated his cold, calculating eyes. The match burned low, singeing his fingers, but he didn't flinch. "You should have stayed in the basement, Elena." Elena looked at Silas's desk. She saw a duplicate of the blue folder, but this one was full of passports. Forged passports, new identities, Canadian, Australian, Brazilian, all bearing Mark's face with different names. John Miller, James Bradford, Marco Silva. Silas was planning Mark's escape and disappearance. He was preparing a path for his nephew to vanish entirely. "You were going to help him run. You're just as guilty." Silas stood, looming. He was much larger than Elena. He held out his hand for the folder. The shadow of the chair fell across the floor like a claw. "Money like this stays in the family. Hand it over and we can forget you saw this." Elena backed toward the window. The cold rain hammered against the glass, drumming a rhythm of urgency. She was trapped between a brother trying to break the door and an uncle who was a conspirator. The folder felt impossibly heavy in her hands. Silas reached into his inner coat pocket and pulled out a small, silver folding knife. He clicked it open. The blade caught the firelight. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Elena's hand fumbled behind her on a bookshelf. Her fingers closed around a heavy, brass bookend shaped like a lion. She gripped it by its base. The library door splinters. A heavy shoulder bursts through the wood. Mark stands there, breathless, his shirt torn, eyes wild. He looks at Silas, then at Elena, and his face contorts. "End it, Silas. Just take the folder." Elena is backed against the window. She looks down. It's a 20-foot drop into the rose bushes. The rain is a solid wall of gray. Everything feels lost. The sound of the wind carries a terrible finality with it. Silas steps into Elena's personal space. He places the knife point against the blue folder Elena is holding. He is smiling, a thin, cruel smile. "It's over, Elena. You're outnumbered. Give it to me, or I'll take it from your cold hands." Elena swings the brass lion bookend with both hands. It connects with Silas's wrist. The knife flies out of his hand, spinning through the air and embedding itself in a bookshelf with a silver ping. The blade sinks into the wood beside a first edition of Wuthering Heights. Elena charges at Mark before he can react. She drives her shoulder into his solar plexus, knocking him back through the splintered door. They both spill out onto the hallway carpet. He goes down hard, the breath knocked out of him, a sound like a deflating balloon escaping his lips. Elena scrambles up first. She kicks the door shut on Silas, who is clutching his wrist. She sprints back toward the stairs, shouting for her mother at the top of her lungs. "Mom, Mother, police!" Mother appears at the bottom of the stairs, holding the cordless house phone. She sees Mark crawling out of the library and Elena running down. The realization of the violence sets in. Her face becomes steel. The shock burns away, replaced by something harder and colder. "I'm already on the line with Sophia, Mark. She just called me." Mark freezes on the stairs. He stares at his mother. The mention of Sophia's name by her is the ultimate defeat. The weight of it is too much. He collapses, sitting on his heels, defeated. His shoulders slump. His hands hang limp at his sides. Elena sits in the center of the living room, the blue folder open on a coffee table. She's holding a pen and a piece of legal paper. Mark and Silas are seated on the sofa, monitored by Aunt June, who is now holding a fireplace poker. The fireplace poker looks incongruous in her delicate hands, but she grips it with fierce determination. Elena slides the paper across the table. It is a signed confession of the embezzlement and the bigamy. She also has letters. So many letters, all from Sophia, all carefully dated and documented. The final twist. Sophia has been wanting out for years and has been sending Elena clues through the mail. She left the floorboard loose. She hid the receipt. She orchestrated the entire revelation. Sophia wasn't your secret, Mark. She was your victim. She's the one who left the floorboard loose. Mark looks at the letters Elena holds. He realizes his other wife was the one who betrayed him. The woman he thought he was protecting, the woman whose life he thought he was building in secret, had been working against him all along. She had been gathering evidence. She had been reaching out. She had been calling Elena to arrange this exact moment. Mark signs the confession with a shaky hand. The pen scratches loud in the silent room. Blue ink pools on the white paper. His signature is barely recognizable, a scrawl that looks like the dying gasp of a man drowning. Mother takes the photos and the letters. She looks at each one carefully, studying them with the intensity of a scholar examining ancient texts. Then she walks to the fireplace. She throws them into the fire. She isn't destroying evidence. She is destroying the lie. The papers catch immediately, curling and blackening at the edges. The photographs of the toddler with golden curls curl and bubble in the heat. The image of Sophia laughing becomes a dark smear. Then ash. Mother turns back to Elena. There is no approval in her expression, nothing so simple as pride. There is only respect. The kind of respect that passes between two people who have survived something together, who have walked through darkness and come out the other side changed. Elena stands and adjusts her sweater. She picks up the blue folder, which now contains only the legal documents for the police. She walks toward the front door. Thunder rumbles in the distance. Her heels click on the wood floor. "I'm calling the lawyer now. Don't leave the house, Mark." The sun rises over the Blackwood estate, turning the rain-soaked garden gold. Elena sits on the porch swing, watching the light transform the landscape. A white ceramic mug of coffee sits in her hands, steam rising into the cold morning air. Her knuckles are bruised, purple and blue. The colors will fade, but the marks will last for weeks. Physical reminders of what happened in the darkness. Claire walks out and sits next to her. She is changed into a simple sweater and jeans. She hands Elena a phone. On the screen is a photograph of the toddler, a new one sent by Sophia. The child is smiling at the camera, sunshine in her hair. The timestamp on the photo shows it was taken just hours ago, while Elena was sitting in the living room with the legal documents. She wants us to meet her, without Mark. Elena looks out at the garden. The rain has stopped. The black Victorian house looks less like a fortress now and more like just a house. Bricks and mortar, wood and glass, a place where people lived and made choices, some terrible, some brave. Elena sips her coffee. She sets the blue folder down on the porch table. It is thin now, almost empty. The weight of the secrets is gone. What remains is only what is true, what is documented, what will matter in the courtroom and in the cold, unforgiving light of the law. Elena stands and stretches. She looks at the driveway. Police cars are visible in the distance, their lights pulsing blue and red against the dawn. The uniformed officers are returning to finish the work, to collect statements, to document everything, to make the truth official. She is ready. The porch swing creaks as she stands. The ceramic mug sits empty on the table, a white circle against the weathered wood. The folder remains closed. Behind her, through the glass door, she can hear the sound of the telephone ringing. The lawyer, probably. Or the police. Or Sophia, calling to confirm the details of their meeting. Elena doesn't turn around. She steps off the porch into the garden, where the rain has watered the roses and everything smells like earth and renewal. The grass is wet beneath her feet. The morning air is cold and sharp against her skin. She walks toward the gates.